Hello everyone. In this Jupyter book tutorial, we are going to teach you how to create a Jupyter book and also deploy it online. For this tutorial, you will need some skills involving like Git, and then we will also walk you through about how to set up Conda environment, install Jupyter book packages, create your own repository, build a book locally, and then deploy your book online. So normally you write like Python notebook files in like a notebook environment. But what if you want to show and share your notebook with others? You can use the Jupyter book packages. It will help you to compile your notebook into a HTML website so that you can put it on GitHub pages, for example, to show it to the general public. Okay, so let's walk you through about the process. In this tutorial, it's going to be very short, so I'm just going to talk about the high-level details. You need to follow these steps in detail in the tutorial to be able to complete that. So before we start, there are something to keep in mind. Before starting the tutorial, the first thing is you will need a GitHub account. So please go to this GitHub pages link and then register a GitHub account. Then you will need to create a GitHub personal access token. So access token means some kind of token that you will use when you push your code to the remote repository and also pull your code. So you will set up a remote repository on GitHub. That's the place that you can push your code to a repository. And then GitHub has a service that they can show the code on a website. So you will need to work with GitHub, and that requires you to create some tokens. You can follow the steps below to create your token. So there's a page that you can go. But you need to be careful to create the classic token, not the fine-grained tokens. You also need to give it the correct permissions, like the repo thing here. Or if you don't want to like manually set up the personal access token, you can also download the GitHub desktop app. So when you download this GitHub desktop, you can follow the instructions, and it should help you and guide you through the process so that you don't have to create your personal access token. This GitHub desktop should work on Mac, on Linux, and also on Windows machines. Then you need to install the environment to run your Jupyter notebook. You can go to this Jupyter website to install the user interfaces and also the system. Now, one very important thing is you need to know how to operate the Git tool. So in order to do that, we ask you to use either the terminal, or you can also use other software. For example, if you have Visual Studio Code, maybe the Git tool is already integrated. But in here, we are going to use the terminal. So before you start, please install the Git tool if you are on Windows. So go to this link, install the Git tool. If you are on Mac or Linux, there should be already Git tool installed, so you can just use them. If you are not very familiar with Git, we will ask you to watch this 15-minute Git tutorial video first. So go to this page and watch the video. Then you will know, you will have some higher level concepts about how to use Git. Okay, so that's things that you need to do before running the tutorial. Then we are going to go through the steps one by one. So step one is to install Conda. You will need to install either the mini Conda or Anaconda packages. It's up to your choice to decide which one to install. Mini Conda has fewer packages installed. Anaconda comes with a lot of packages. It is handy, but it can take a lot of time to install. There's one thing important to keep in mind. You can check if you already have your Conda installed. If your Conda is already there, then if you run this conda -- version command, you should see some printed messages about the version number. If nothing shows up, that means no Conda if there is already a Conda installation, then you can skip this step. If you are on Mac, then you can install the Conda packages. You can install the mini Conda using brew install -- cask mini Conda. And then there are other paths that you will probably need to do and put it in your bash profile. So this bash profile is some file that your terminal will run every time you open it. Okay, if you are using Windows and then you are using the installer to set up Conda, make sure that you tick the box to allow the installer to set a system environment path. Otherwise, your path will not work and you will not be able to use your Conda command in your terminal. So this is only specific for Windows. The next step, once you have your Conda installed, is to install Jupyter Book. So for Mac and Linux, first step is to use the Conda to create a Jupyter Book environment using Python 3.10. Our experience is using a higher version of Python can cause some errors, so we just ask you to use 3.10. And then you can activate this environment and do a pip install on the Jupyter Book packages. After that, you should be able to run Jupyter Book -- help, and then you should have no error messages. If you install a higher version of Python, you might get error messages here when you try to run Jupyter Book help, but maybe it will not affect the follow-up steps. So maybe you can try to proceed even with some errors here. For Windows machines, it's a little bit different. So for Windows, sometimes when you install Conda, when you use Conda to install Jupyter Book, it could pend forever, but we already found some solutions to that. So just follow our steps. On Windows, you have different terminals to choose, but we recommend using the Git bash that comes with the Git tool. So when you install the Git tool, it should come with a bash, and that is the one that we recommend of using. If you use the native Windows terminal, it may use different commands, and then maybe the command that we ask you to run here will not work. So please try to use the Git bash. Then you can, once you open the Git bash, there should be something called like a parenthesis space before your Windows command. If you didn't see it, run conda activate, and you will see this base stuff. That means the conda base environment. And also, there are some error messages, like if it shows up, maybe your terminal don't really recognize conda. In that case, you can run conda ionit bash. Then close your git bash, reopen it, and you should be able to see it. Okay, next, the step is similar with the Mac and Linux version. So you create a conda environment with the name Jupyter Book with Python also 3.10. You activate Jupyter Book and you use a different way to install. You use conda install -c conda forge. So it's the different installation than pip install. Our experience is if you use pip install, maybe there will be errors. It is likely that there will be errors there. So we recommend using a conda install from conda forge. Then the installation can take several minutes because conda need to solve the environment. So just wait a little bit until it finishes and then check if there's errors here. So that's step 2. The next step is step 3, which is create a new repository. In this step, you need to run git command to clone your remote repositories to your local repository. And then you need to build your book and then push your notebook files here. So the first step is you create a new repository on GitHub and then clone it. The first step is to clone our repository, which is already created for you. So this git clone command means we are copying this remote repository. And then you are going to CD into the repository. So CD just means you go into the repository, and then you need to remove all the old Git files. These are the Git history, so you need to remove them because we want to use this template for your new Jupyter book. Then, if you are on Windows, maybe you run a different terminal, then you will need to use a different command, such as delete. But if you use git bash, then this command rm should have no problem. Next, you need to create a new repository. So you can go to this link and create a new one. And then make sure make sure your repository is public. If it's not public, you will not be able to show your website online. You don't have to add a README file because there's already a README file in the original template. You can just use that. And then you also don't really need to add git ignore and the license because we already have that in the template. Next, once you have your repository, clone your repository to your local machine. Run git clone again. And then copy whatever in the template to your repository. So this cp command means copy. -r means recursive. So you're recursively copying everything in this repository, in this directory. It's Jupyter book template / and this is a wildcard symbol, which means everything inside this directory to your repository. Once you do that, which means you already copy all the code from our template to your own repository. Okay, and then that's the step. Well, notice that you need to use the terminal to copy the files. So if you don't do that, make sure you copy the hidden files, because if you just drag and drop, you could miss git ignore or git module on these files that are in the original repository, and you might miss these files. So make sure you use terminal to copy the files. The next step is we want to now build the book locally. So after we clone the repository, you need to, inside the contact environment, install these packages. So these are going to be used in building the tutorial, in building this Jupyter book. Then cd into your repository, because you already have all the template files copied here. So this my repository name should be your repository. Then you run this Jupyter book build command. Then it will run for a while and then build the entire book. If there are errors, make sure you check if you install these packages, and they should be fine. If you want to build the book from scratch, so this build command, sometimes it doesn't really work well because there are some cached files in there. If it doesn't work well, then you can use this command, Jupyter book build --o, and then space dot. You can use that to build the entire book from scratch. After that, you should see the HTML files in your _build /HTML directory. It will be created by the Jupyter book. And then you can use that. You can go into the directory and you can double click on the files on your browser to see it. If you have a local HTTP server installed, like a Apache server, then that's better. Also notice that there is a _config.yaml file. You need to modify that and then check this documentation about how to modify the config.yaml file. You can also go into the file. We have some comments in there to tell you like which part you have to modify. Next step is to deploy the book online. So now we have the repository and we have the book built locally. So you need to deploy the book online. The way to do that is now you need to use git command to add the code and then push the code. So your first step is to go into the repository, then you run this git add command. This means I'm adding all the changes, and then you use git status to check what's the current status. You should see green messages in the terminal saying that which files are added already. And then you make a commit message saying anything related to your current commit. So every time you want to push some changes to GitHub, it's called commit. Make sure you add meaningful information here. After that, run git push, and then it will take a while, and then the code should appear on your remote GitHub repository. There is one more step to do to make the web GitHub pages work. For Mac or Linux users, you need to install this GHP import. Also for the Windows users, but you are using different ways of installing this package. After you install the package, run the following command. So this GHP import package will help you set up the GitHub pages in your repository. After that, go to your repository. Under this settings, you should see a site link appears under your GitHub pages. So go to the settings. On the left panel, there's a pages tab. Click that, and you should see a link to GitHub pages. And if you click this link, that should be your Jupyter book. Okay, so until now, you should be able to build your book and deploy your book online. If you want to update the website content, just repeat the previous two steps without the package installation. So we put the steps together here. So you first need to rebuild the Jupyter book, then run the git status and add and commit, and then push it, and then put it on GitHub pages. Then you should see like some actions is already going on to build your page, and you should see a green checkbox. And that's this tutorial. There are some troubleshooting things here that you can check. After that, you should be able to click this example notebook, and this one, you should be able to see some tables. This one is actually comes from Plotly, so you should also have a Plotly running. Like you can use your mouse to scroll it, or to also zoom, or to change the view. And there should be another plot at the end. So that's the Jupyter book tutorial. Hope you can successfully build a Jupyter book. Thank you for listening.